Good evening. I'll now call the City of Cannon Falls City Council meeting for Tuesday, August the 1st to order. Roll call.
Councilmember Abity.
Present.
Altoff.
Here.
Carpenter.
Here.
Dalton.
Here.
Mattson.
Here.
McCusker.
Yeah.
And Mayor Robinson.
Here. All please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. Seems like it's been forever since we had a meeting, which almost has. But this time, the chair will take a motion of the amended agenda.
So moved. I'll second it.
Who was the first one?
Me.
Motion by Ken, second by Morris. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. That moves us on to public input this evening. Citizens may speak to issues not on the agenda. Before speaking, please give your name and address for the minutes, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm just here in hopes that the council would make a decision on the roadway west of the winery, because we never have. So far, the mayor shut it off. I think that the winery decides when they're going to close it and for how long. And I think there's plenty of room there for them to operate and for the public to pass, since it is a public roadway and since the city owns it. At least I think it is. Nobody seems to know. I've talked to Maroney. How can this be that tough? It's been a roadway for 100 years that I'm aware of. Did you find anything out, Ken?
Well, I talked to a couple land surveyors that know a lot more than I do, and they are pretty 99% sure it does not meet the legal requirements for a road.
It doesn't meet the legal requirements.
No? It's
a roadway by prescriptive easement.
It's a parking lot with a north and south entrance.
Well, isn't this interesting? I don't think it gets any simpler than what this is. And I've dealt with MnDOT on this very issue just north of town, on the road that came to Cannon Falls way back in the pioneer days. It's on private property. They still can't keep me from accessing it, and they know that. They tried, but they know they can't. No Maroney. He said I was probably right. Nobody cares to do anything about it.
It's not on the agenda.
I'm hoping we have a discussion tonight about this.
Good.
We're talking about the parking down there on Mill Street, and hopefully we talk about it more. I think it needs to be talked about myself with all the calls I get, but I guess it's up to the rest of the council.
Well, good. I hope somebody makes a decision. It'd be nice.
Anybody else wishing to address the council under public input? If not, that'll move us on to item 6 this evening. The first one is item A, public hearings to consider adoption of Part 2 Wellhead Protection Plan update. Tom?
I'm going to give you the deer in the headlights look because Minnesota Rural Water was going to be here. The Wellhead Protection Plan is a nice, big, thick document about yay big that took several years to get Part 2. What it is, it's a protection area that's set up by the state, the most vulnerable areas of our water supply system, that including private wells, points of input, highways, things like that. The DUISMA, which is a big fancy word for that area, they've shrank that down, which is good for us. We have a smaller area of contamination. All we're doing with this document is just saying we continue to monitor that. We continue to keep due diligence on anything that comes into that area, anything that's spilt in that area, anything that could affect the future potability of the water of Cannon Falls. So by adopting that, we're just moving this to phase 2, which has been 25 years in the makings from phase 1 to where we're at now. Greg could maybe comment more on that, but
Yeah, this is part of the Department of Health's effort, and the city will have to update it again in about 10 years. It does have a list of tasks the city will have to undertake over the next 10 years. It's kind of in the form of an unfunded mandate, if you will. Hey, we need you to protect your water, and here we're going to tell you how to do it. And it's going to cost you some money to do it and some staff time to do it. And that's all in here too, what steps they recommend, a calendar on when that should be done, what years. But like Tom said, the biggest part of this was the modeling that took place to identify the groundwater, how it moves and gets to the city's well field, and where it comes from and how long it takes to get there. And that's what defines the DWSMA, which is a fancy acronym for Drinking Water Supply Management Area. That's in here. It's got a figure. It shows where it's at. And within that area, they've listed all the wells that are known, potential contamination points. And part of the effort would be, okay, as those properties come up or discussions with the property owners, hey, if you're not using the well, could we get it capped? Start limiting the potential access points for contamination into the well. At the end of the day, they just want to protect the water as much as the city does. So this is a step that's required. You need to have the public hearing tonight. Any comment will be recorded and put into the final Part 2 document that ends up getting adopted by the council, and then the city has it, Department of Health has a copy, and then that's the roadmap kind of to protect your wellhead moving forward. So I would still urge you to just open the hearing, take comment, close it, and then any comments we get, we'll note them, and then put them in the final draft.
Okay. All right, at this time, we will open the public hearing for the Part 2 Wellhead Protection Plan update. Is there anyone wishing to address the council for the Part 2 Wellhead Protection Plan update? Is there anyone wishing to address the council for the Part 2 Wellhead Protection Plan update? Is there anyone wishing to address the council on the Part 2 Wellhead Protection Plan update? Seeing as there is no one wishing to address the council at this time, we will close the public hearing, and the chair will take a motion to approve the Part 2 Wellhead Protection Plan update.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Mike, second by Ken. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, I got some things I'd like to add to that. It's really interesting to me what if this is every 20 years or whatever that Governor Dayton is doing this right now, because in my 50 years of working with wells and septics and water mains and water systems, I've seen a lot of changes, and it really concerns me. And the one thing that really concerns me is that our wells are changing. The one thing that happened the first 20 years I was in business, we worked with shallow wells, and we worked with wells around 150 feet. And the longer I was in business, they went deeper. We went to the Jordan vein, and then we went to the other veins, and then studies were done, and they decided that they should drill them deeper and run the pump shallower. And I don't want to get too deep into this outside of that. When I seen that there's going to be meetings on this, I got so excited because I want to go to the meetings, because I have talked to the county and the state both about that we need to change things with our well systems. Now, the one thing I would like to point out to Tom that I've seen in my lifetime happen is that when I pull a well nowadays, every once in a while I get a 5-gallon pail of box elderbugs out of the well. Asian beetles are another thing that we never had when I first started out the first 25 years. It's very important for any wells we got, Tom, inside the city that the caps be sealed off. And I don't care if you don't want to buy the expensive cap that seals it off. All you have to do is get a tube of silicone out there and seal them. Because we are having sulfur problems, and we are getting hydrogen problems. We are getting wells that are black inside. And for some reason, things are really changing. And I think this is a great subject to not demonize the fact that farmers are within 5 feet of the creek and we want them to be 50 feet. This is about our total safety of our water system. And one thing with Minnesota, that's one of our big assets. So I just wanted to point out that I think this is a very serious subject and needs to be taken seriously. Thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's approved. That moves us on to item B, which is Resolution 2290, certifying unpaid utility charges to be collected with taxes. Linnell?
Thank you, Mayor. It is the quarterly public hearing that we held, or that we will be holding for the unpaid utility bills. I honestly haven't had a chance to look at them to compare them to before, so I don't know how they compare to prior lists. One thing I will note is we are still in the process of, and we're getting very close to being able to allow the credit cards, so we're hoping that that will have an impact on this. But for tonight's meeting, you have the list before you, and then we'll take public input on that.
I thought we were allowed, I thought that was already in place, the credit card payment.
No, it was approved by the city council to
Right.
start that process, and so we had to get the equipment and the things that were provided by the company, and the programs are now ready, and we're about this close to getting it going now. So.
Okay.
All right. Any other discussion before we open the public hearing? I'm just looking at it, it looks about the same or maybe a little less than what the last quarter was. I think the last one was right around 21, so I mean, it's a little less. I don't see anything really standing out as far as the numbers go. I mean, for what I've seen, I mean,
Actually, it was up a couple thousand, wasn't it?
last time it was.
8,000 last
I
time?
think it was 21,
Oh, okay.
somewhere in there.
It seems like the list is a little longer.
Well, I was kind of excited because I was hoping the credit card thing had kicked in already and we could see if there was a difference.
Is that what the computer is out in the lobby out there?
Okay.
It's good.
All right.
I noticed many of those bills are not for a whole lot of money. Some as little as a monthly payment.
Yep. All right. There's no other discussion. At this time, we'll open the public hearing for Resolution 2290 for the unpaid utility charges for the second quarter of 2017. Is there anybody wishing to address the council for resolution certifying unpaid utility charges to be collected with taxes? Is there anyone wishing to address the council under Resolution 2290, certifying unpaid utility charges to be collected with taxes? Is there anyone wishing to address the council under Resolution 2290, a resolution certifying unpaid utility charges to be collected with taxes? If not, at this time, we will close the public hearing, and Chair will take a motion to approve Resolution 2290.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Cedar, second by John. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. That moves us on to item 7 this evening, the consent agenda. Items of this area of the agenda may be adopted or they may be removed and placed on the business area of the agenda for discussion purposes before approving. Item 7A is adjusting correct claims for the accounting period ending July the 27th, 2017. Item B are the meeting minutes for the July 18th, 2017 City Council meeting. Item C, approve temporary on-sale liquor license for the Cannon Falls Lions Club. And item D, set budget workshop meeting. Are there any items anybody wishes to bring down?
A.
A?
Yeah.
Okay, item A will become item 8E. Are there any others? If not, Chair will take a motion to approve the consent agenda minus item A, which will become item 8E under council business.
Second.
Motion by Mike, second by Ken. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Moves us on to council business. Item A is group employee health insurance.
Thank you. Tonight, we have Bill Singer with the AT Group present. As I stated in my memo, and I think I mentioned at the last meeting, in previous years, we haven't known what our health insurance premiums are going to be until November, right about the time we're setting our final levy. We moved our renewal date up a month, so that gave us the opportunity to learn what our rates will be much sooner, actually this time of the year. As I said, Bill works for the AT Group. They've worked on behalf of the city, working with the city's insurance over the past approximately 10 years. I worked with Bill, or Bill worked with the city of Lake City when I was there for several years before that. Anyway, Bill's here. He can kind of explain maybe I don't know about the health insurance environment, but as best as you can, at least where we're sitting as a municipality and here in Cannon Falls.
Yep.
Just
All right. Again,
go ahead.
my name is Bill Singer, and I've been working with the city for 10 years. I'm one of those individuals that gets to work with the Affordable Care Act on a daily basis. So that's some of my struggles in my industry right now. I work with the city on the health, the life insurance, the dental insurance, the long-term disability, the voluntary vision care, the flexible benefit plan, which is also sometimes called the cafeteria plan, and then also on the COBRA administration to help the city stay not only up to speed with what's going on with the benefit world, but also help them to stay compliant, because in my industry right now, it's been more about compliance than it has been about benefits lately since the inception of the Affordable Care Act. So a little bit about our health renewal. This year, we're with Health Partners for our health insurance. The good news is that Health Partners is considered the best carrier in the state. Also, we are in a very large pool that helps us. However, the difficult part of our situation, and I talked to Robbie about this just for about 2 minutes before the meeting, is that we are in Region 1 in the state. Okay? Region 1 is populated mainly by the Mayo Clinic, and that has caused us to have higher, how do you say that nicely? Our rates are higher than everybody else's, okay? Due to the fact that we're in the presence of the Mayo, and we get to deal with the charges that they have. Nonetheless, so our Health Partners insurance renewal for 12/1 of this year came in at 9%. That was higher than I had hoped. That is also higher than I'd seen in other areas of the state. So without necessarily just rolling over and taking 9%, we just don't want to do that. We thought we would take a look at every other option that is out there. So I thought I would do for you is just give you 10, 15 seconds on all the other options we looked at. And then, unlike the years in the past where the health insurance decision has always been fairly easy because we've had a good carrier with the best rates, historically, Health Partners has had better rates than pretty much the rest of the carriers. Historically, they've also had an administration and claim system that has run extremely well. They were rated top 20 in the nation for a couple years, and so we're with a good plan. But nonetheless, here we go. So in the state of Minnesota, for small groups, which we're a small group, we're in a large pool, but we're a small group, and small groups, according to the Affordable Care Act, is anybody under 50, okay, 50 full-time equivalent employees. So we have to look at carriers that offer small group insurance. So the first carrier, we only have 4 in the state, okay, Blue Cross, Preferred One, Medica, and Health Partners. And then along with that, we have a couple self-insure or co-op / self-insure items that are out there. So if we take a look at the 4 carriers that are out there, we're already with Health Partners, so they gave us 9%. Good carrier, but more than we wanted to take. If we look at Preferred One has ceased even offering any coverage in Area 1. Okay, so they're not even an option. They don't even sell here anymore. Okay. We end up with the next carrier we looked at. Well, I'll go down the list here in order. I looked at the service co-op. Okay, the service co-op was the next carrier I looked at. This is a carrier that it's a self-insured pool, but the groups in it are fully insured. Our claims and our rates for our group, if we were in the service co-op, would be partially determined by our group's utilization. Does anyone know what utilization is? How much we use compared to how much we send in. So I took a look at our utilization, and our utilization says that we would probably be looking at a 50% increase in order for our claims and our utilization to match, or for us to even be at all attractive to a service co-op, because they don't want to invite a group into their co-op that's going to use $400,000 worth of claims and only send in $300,000 worth of premiums. That doesn't help the co-op as a whole. Okay? So for our situation, not being in the co-op is protecting us from higher rates. Right now we are in a large community-rated pool with health partners where all of the groups that have the same plan that we have the same rates all across Region 1. So that's a fairly large pool. Having community rates has protected us for the last few years. Okay, so there's another option that doesn't work for us. We took a look at PEEP, the Public Employees Insurance Plan. Okay, it's a plan that just uses other carriers' networks. PEEP is we sent out. We got proposals from PEEP. The good news is that the rates came in lower. The hard part is that it's due to a significant reduction in benefits from the PEEP plan. PEEP has a plan that works based on network tiers. The more expensive your network, the higher the cost to the employee. Our network, the Cannon Falls, has the highest expense rating within PEEP. So for example, our current plan has a $30 copay. That's equivalent to a Tier 1 PEEP plan. Cannon Falls networks are Tier 4. Everybody's office copay would go to $120 for an office visit copay. Okay, that is how they would be able to save some dollars. Let me just make sure that's right. Yes, $120 copay. So that didn't become an option to us just because it would be such a drastic reduction in benefits to the employees that I would fear you would have a revolt on your hands going from a $30 copay to a $120 copay. Deductibles would do the same thing, though, from where we are to 2 or 3 times higher than where we are. So there's another option that didn't work for us. I looked at Medica. Medica has a plan that's similar to ours. However, due to the Affordable Care Act, which requires that small group health insurance carriers continue to change their plan design so that the employees continue to pay more every year. It's right in the Affordable Care Act that they have to change their plan design so that the employees pay more consistently. Medica just made a change in their co-insurance, which means that it's more money out of the employee's pocket. So in the situation with Medica, we ended up with less premium. However, it wasn't really less premium, it was a cost shift. The cost shift would go from the city's premium to the employee's pocketbook, because even though the premium was less, the employee's share was more. Does that make sense? So we're just cost shifting in that situation. So that there's no compelling reason to cost shift. If we wanted to cost shift, we could cost shift with the same carrier that we're at. It would be a lot smoother transition, but it's just not employee friendly to cost shift. So now we're only down to one carrier left, which was Blue Cross. Blue Cross came in with a premium that was lower, which historically hasn't been the case, and makes people like me nervous when all of a sudden a carrier has a rate increase or a rate change that was different than the market. Some of the things that I look at when I consider insurance carriers is their history, and historically, small group plans with Blue Cross have been more expensive. Blue Cross's plans went down a little bit. Actually, shouldn't say they went down. They probably didn't go up as much as the other carriers did a year and a half or two ago. However, since then, they've been rapidly catching the rates from Health Partners and Medica. By that I mean is if we were with Blue Cross last year and now we were with Blue Cross again this year, we would have had a 16% increase because their rates are going up faster than anybody else's. And I fear that a move to them would be short-lived, and we would be doing this again next year, flipping back to the Health Partners. So all of that said, I want to make myself available for questions, but first give you my recommendation here is that I can't see a compelling reason to move at this point from a carrier that has the administration and claims processing down and has historically been very good, even in light of the fact that there are some things in our area and region that are kind of fighting against us. So with that said, I'll answer questions.
Just one question, Bill. I know that you went and looked to see what, if we were in Dakota County, if the city
Yes.
hall was on the Dakota County side of this, how much less would our rates be in Region 8 compared to us in Region 1?
Yes. Okay. At Ron's request, I ran a comparison for the same exact plan, and it works out like this: that if let's just use it for easy math, if the rates were $1,000 for somebody in Dakota County, your exact plan would be $1,500. It's a 50% increase just because you're in Region 1 compared to Region 8. Now, Region 8 is pretty much the least expensive region, so you're the least expensive to the most expensive, so there's a significant difference. The other regions in the state are scattered in between there. I'm guessing I believe the Southwest is the other region, which is slightly influenced by the mail down here. But then if you go north, way north, you end up with a little higher than Region 8, which is the metro, because there's no competition. In the metro, you have lots of competition, so the rates are better. So that's a long answer, but yeah, the Region 8 is higher.
I mean, and we've been fighting this, for quite a few years, ever since the Affordable Care Act came out.
And before then even, Region 8 was higher.
Right.
So.
And what do you think is the biggest cause of that?
Oh, it's the Mayo. I'm convinced it's the Mayo Clinic. And until you have the Mayo Clinic charge rates similar to what everybody else charges, I think you're going to be in the same ball. It's and I understand it's a horrible thing. However, you talk to people in Region 8 and Region 5, and they're not wanting, they have plans there that exclude the mail from their network just to reduce their costs. So.
Yeah, but a lot of the folks in Region 8 come down and use Mayo right in our system, and they get less rates compared to what we have.
Yes, true. They can use the mail. They have to pay for slightly high. There's slightly higher rates for plans that have access to the mail.
Well,
you are correct.
On the plan. It depends on the company.
But it's not 50%.
I know, but it depends on the company, which company charges. Some of them, that's right in their network. Mayo's in a lot of these places in the city's network, so
Yep,
they
right.
can travel from up there, but if we go up there, we're still paying the same price as if we were going,
Yes.
so.
Yep, you are correct. You are correct. Absolutely. You are. It's just the proximity that everyone is so close to the mail here that's their first choice, where it's not always the first choice of someone. For serious things, a lot of people want to head to the mail. But for the daily, hey, I got a finger that's dislocated because I played basketball, they will just go to their local clinic. So, but yeah.
I got a lot of questions for you.
I'm here. I got a bulletproof vest on. I'm an insurance agent. Do
Good.
this a lot.
Glad you got it on. You know, this stuff sometimes in America just gets bizarre. It's not about the good things or the right things. It's always about the dang money. I get so sick of that. And of course, I've been a part of Goodhue County always being higher on the insurance end all these years, trying to figure out why that is. I got to tell you that I don't like you bringing up the Mayo Clinic like that, not because I don't think you're right. I just think it's more to it than that, because you guys could specify that they don't go to the Mayo and go someplace else. So I don't want to get into some kind of a contest here with Mayo Clinic demonizing them, so I'd rather not talk about that anymore. But what I would like to talk about is how many employees we have in Cannon Falls and how much we're spending for insurance on each employee. If you talk about, if you could fill me in on that, and if you could fill me in on a $30 deductible versus $120 deductible, but we're passing a 9% expense on to all the citizens of Cannon Falls to pay for this, maybe the 120 isn't so bad. So I'm sitting here really happy that you're here to answer these questions, because I think this needs to have a serious talk. And I think the blame game, I'm pretty much tired of it. So if you could, how many employees do we have, Ron, that are on insurance right now? I mean, you say it's 50 or less, right?
It's 50 or less, yep.
Right, and we're less than 50, I assume?
Yeah, that 50 is the full-time eligible employees. That doesn't mean that we have that many that are on the city's insurance. That is full-time and full-time equivalent employees.
So if we break that down to, we got 40 employees, what does it come out to be, 5,000 a year?
It's probably closer to 10,000 a year.
10,000 a year.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the other thing is there anything that says that we have more claims or anything than any other town our size? Is that when you talked about claims and stuff? Yeah, you're in the insurance business to handle claims. We can't run around and tell people, you know, we don't want you using a jackhammer because you might get hurt. We want insurance. When them people need a jackhammer, we ought to know they're covered. And if we have a claim, to me, there's some kind of balance. So is Cannon Falls rated higher for risk?
The pool that we are in rates everybody exactly the same. So we don't absorb any other risk or any excessive risk due to our claims utilization. Part of the Affordable Care Act established what's called community rates for groups our size, which means Cannon Falls and Pine Island and City of Casson and whatever other group, if they all had the same plan that we had, they would all have exactly the same rates, because we have what's known as community rates. So we're in a very large community rated pool, which actually helps us, because your second point was, do we use more than the average group? Yes, we do. So if we were to move outside of that community rating, for example, if we wanted to try to self-insure ourselves, our rates would have to go up, so we would have to pay more to cover our own claims. But since we're actually community rated, it's good to be in the protection of the community. So hopefully
so if I just openly think about this right now, if we're roughly talking 10,000 a person, I watch the news a lot and read a lot, and everybody wants to demonize Obamacare. I understand that, but you turn around and when you watch them interview people, when it started out, they were paying like $375, and then it was $520, and
Yep.
and then it's up to $6, and then it's up to $7. So I'm sitting here thinking, if the Affordable Care Act is out there and people have options on that, and you're going to pay $700 a month to have insurance on there, and it's costing us $1,000 a month or whatever, why do we keep doing this? Because you guys are notorious of never going down. You're like the gas station.
Right.
Whenever I go in to fill up, it's always up.
Right.
And
I see it coming.
I pay my insurance bills out, and I've been doing it for 50 years now, and there's an increase every year. And it's always somebody's fault or something else. So I still can't believe that the medical system hollers about being more efficient and better and everything else, and yet insurance keeps going up. So to me, this whole thing just drives me nuts, because to me, we'd almost be better off to give all of our employees an $8,000 raise and say, figure out your own insurance. Because if we do it this year, next year you're going to come back, tell us another 9%. And it's that way every year.
Hope not, yeah.
So I don't have the answers for this. And you got a very tough job, and I appreciate you doing this. But to me, whether they pay $120 deductible or $30, and we could get the cost out or at least keep it neutral, I don't know if that's a bad thing. I think as long as you got the insurance companies making money off the working class citizen, this isn't going to change.
Okay, so let me just jump in on a couple of those things here, if you don't mind. I know this is pretty exciting, Affordable Care Act stuff. In the state of Minnesota, there are 4 insurance companies because the other insurance companies have left due to the fact that the state has a rule that says all insurance companies have to be nonprofit. So by law, they're considered nonprofit. United Healthcare, which is the one everybody hears about on the news, doesn't sell in Minnesota because it's not a non-for-profit. Now, the state regulates how much they can and cannot make. And so in our situation, the insurance companies, when I look at the revenues versus claims and things, they're 1%, 1.5% is about the margin that they run under. So in this equation, in the state of Minnesota, the insurance companies, as far as profit taking, that's not part of the equation. Okay, the state regulates how much they can charge for premiums based on the claims history and trend. And trend is how much more all of these things are going to cost next year compared to how much they cost this year. Because not everything goes up every year, but some things go up every year. So I understand the frustration there, especially in some states where there may be more profit taking. It's not necessarily the case in Minnesota. Hopefully that, trying not to demonize anybody here, for our situation where we have employer-sponsored insurance. Okay, part of what the Affordable Care Act did was say, as an employer, you cannot give your employees money to have them go buy insurance on the open market. So they eliminated that option. Some groups had done that just because of what had happened to insurance rates. But the Affordable Care Act, whether it was intentional or not, was pushing insurance towards employer groups, and they made it not legal for you to give your employees an $8,000 raise and say, go find your own insurance. So what we are is having to move a lot of groups that had done that back to employer-sponsored plans. The other thing is if you were to give them an $8,000 raise, that $8,000 becomes taxable to the employee, and so they're going to lose a couple thousand of that immediately, whereas right now the taxable premiums, the premiums are not taxed, so it's a direct benefit to the employees. And in most situations, plans that are on the individual market are a major decrease in benefits compared to what the city has. We're talking 6,000. I don't know if anybody here has an individual plan. A $6,000, $7,000 deductible for a single is not unheard of on the individual market.
I do find it ironic, though, when you mention the word nonprofit insurance, because I don't know of too many that aren't making a profit. And then I find it ironic that we're the highest insurance in the United States because of the Mayo Clinic, which is nonprofit.
Actually, in the state of Minnesota, our area is high.
But I just find it ironic how nonprofit is used for such mysterious reasons.
Yeah. No, and you're right. Mayo Clinic does the best top of the line care. It's just expensive. So, but yeah, nonprofit, true, nonprofit.
I guess
Good point.
what I'd like to see is, you told us these things, small things, but I didn't see any numbers. I didn't see a chart
No.
saying, well, if we go with Blue Cross or the other one,
Yeah, whatever.
what are those numbers? What are those numbers to us?
Yeah. No,
Because we're looking at the whole city. We got to look at. I mean, we have to. Yeah, we got our employees, but we have to look at what the cost it is to taxpayers.
yeah, and I did
at the
that
same time.
probably purposely to not create a paperwork storm.
I'd like to
but-
have that before we make a decision when we start doing the budget on the stuff, so we can see which way we may want to go. I think we need to see that.
Thank you for bringing that up, Ron. I think this really needs to be discussed. I think to have a clear conscience and vote on this thing, we need to discuss it, not just approve it like we're always doing. And I also, the legal part of it, I get so tired of hearing about data privacy and all this kind of stuff because everybody has good intentions doing the right thing. So to me, if we went with the $120 deductible and we gave everybody a 2% raise to help cover that, but you can't say that, maybe that's an option. I don't know, but I think I would really appreciate to explore this more.
I mean, I really think we should see the numbers and the breakdowns on that. I mean, because if we do that, then we've got a clearer picture than just what you told us. I mean, we appreciate that, but I mean, I still think we need to see the breakdown. So what would be the cost, if it's 80-20, 70-30,
Right.
whatever it is.
Yep.
But we need to see that so that we can make the best decision, not only for our employees, but for our citizens also that pay the tab.
And and I can do that. The difficult part is that none of these plans line up the same. Okay, so we're not comparing apples to apples. We're comparing a plan that's a little cheaper, that has a different co-insurance, to a plan that's, a better plan that costs a little more, shifting the costs back and forth. And then there's also the things that you can't quantify in numbers, like the service and the difficulties the carriers have or have not been having, which influences my decision significantly, because the last thing I want to be doing is coming back here saying that we recommended the worst possible option for the employees as far as administration goes. So, but I can try to quantify that in.
I mean, something that's close to what we've got now with two of these plans to show us which one, or some that are comparable. I mean, they don't have to be the same, but as long as they're comparable,
Right.
for us to be able to look at.
Right.
I mean, because I've been asking this for a couple of years. Let's instead of going down the same road, let's see if there's something comparable that might save us $50.
Oh yeah, right. I mean, we can save $50.
I mean,
it's going to dial it down.
or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just what I'm trying to say is, but we need to find a way, and we need to be able to look at that.
Yep.
I mean, I just don't want to see, on the budget line for insurance, $500,000, and that's what we're stuck with. But we didn't get a chance to look at it to see, if there's another plan that might be comparable that might save us a little money on the budget.
No, I'm sure there's a law out there for this too, but I don't understand everything we do around here, we gotta have beds on it. I don't understand why you don't put the insurance out there and say the city needs to renew their insurance this year and insurance companies bid on it. I don't know why it has to be done this way outside. I'm sure there's a law or a rule or something again.
You're right, there is a law. For groups that are under 50, the bidding process has pretty much been eliminated due to the fact that all of the rates for all of the carriers are published. So all I have to do is look at my spreadsheets for the 4 carriers, and there's no negotiations with the carriers anymore. You ask for rates and they send you the spreadsheet, and I can just plug in our group and it tells me what the rates are. It's purely spreadsheeting. I asked for bids from PEEP, but theirs isn't. Anyways, so yeah, so the bid process.
Sorry it takes so much of your time.
No, you know, I expected it. That's fine. I'm trying to do the best I can for you guys and work with Ron here and make sure we get the best option for the city. So, and make sure your guys not necessarily are happy, but at least understand the pain and why we are stuck with what we're kind of stuck, I guess. So.
And one of the things that concerns me is that as we look at these and we try to save $1 here and we try to save $1 there, how much does our benefit package work in retention and recruitment? If we all of a sudden go from a $30 copay up to a $120 copay because we can save $25 a month, is that, does that play into it when we're trying to recruit somebody to come work for us or to keep people who are already here?
I mean, I understand that too.
Something to think about as we go into the discussion.
I mean, I understand that too. I mean, I would just like to see the option, the comparison. That way, we know we've done our homework, for the employees and for the citizens. I mean, that's the biggest thing, is to try to make sure we did our homework. I mean, because there may be other things you can do in a benefit package that might be more enticing, as far as, health insurance accounts and all that kind of stuff. I might be something there that we could improve on to make it better. But, I mean, as we go forward, we'll have to look at it. But I think we just need to really look at that hard one time before we make our decision again.
Well, one of the reasons, or one of the good things about this is that last year, as you recall, we were talking about this in November, right before we set our final levy, after we set our proposed levy. And so now we at least have the opportunity, and I know there were questions last year. I knew there were going to be questions this year, and that's why I brought Bill in because I sure as heck didn't know the answers. But we also didn't want to get down to the detail either, but we'll get the information put together as best as we can and get it back to you. But the other consideration too is that we've got 2 bargaining units that we will be negotiating with this year too. So that's always got to be a play into that too.
There is a state law that has to do with how you bargain with groups and change benefits. So that's something that I guess you'll get to deal with, I guess. So.
I mean, that's why we need to look at it now instead of November.
Right. Which is why we made the move we did last year and changed our renewal date to get us bumped up a little bit. So, all right. Anything else?
Thanks for coming down.
Thanks, Bill.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Next thing up is the First English Church Bank erosion. Mr. Anderson.
All right, evening, Mayor, members of the council. Get the enviable cost of following the insurance guy, but with the engineer, so you're in for a boring night tonight. In my memo, that we've got the First English Church down there off of 2nd Street in Bell in the southwest part of the city. Their parking lot is kind of shown here in the map. The church building's up here in the corner, and Bell Street up here, 2nd over here. Most of their parking lot from the west side of the church west drains west towards a ravine that gets into the little cannon. A couple years ago during that major storm event, that was damaged, eroded back, as you can see with all these tight contour lines, and now this parking lot sheet drains off down the bank, and now they've put curb in a few years ago, and it kind of it intensifies it right to this spot. And now it's eroding the bank. And this line here is the manhole, and there's a sewer manhole down here. So this thin light line is the sanitary sewer main that's getting perilously close, or the bank eroding is getting perilously close to the sewer. Chief McCormick's worked with FEMA to secure funds to repair this because it was part of a major FEMA qualifying event a few years ago. So what we've come up with is a plan to put in a catch basin up here just off the parking lot, a pipe down most of the slope to an outlet structure. It wouldn't directly daylight. It would have to bubble out the top. It would have a drain out the side, and then refill the bank and put in a riprap channel. So anything that does not carried by the pipe would run down the riprapped reinforced slope versus the dirt eroded slope that's there now, and protect our sanitary sewer. This is the platted right-of-way of Third, and then the sewer turns and goes east and then back north up to Bell Street. So the work would be in the city's right-of-way, and as in the memo, the cost, what we're estimating the cost to complete this is all covered by what the chief has worked out with FEMA. So the next step is to go out and get some quotes, which we would do here in August, bring them back to you in the September meeting, and if we get a quote right in the ballpark and you agree, we'll go ahead and get it done yet this fall. And then we'll turn everything in and track it and get it all reimbursed through FEMA, like we did with the bridge repairs from the storms 10 years ago, and the other FEMA work that Jeff's done.
All right. Questions for Greg?
Yep, Greg, just so I'm clear now, your memo says that Chief McCormick has worked with FEMA to secure funding to repair the eroded bank. Does this funding include all of the work?
What we've estimated, what the plan I laid out tonight and our work is
Everything's included.
the estimates that we have for now. So now the next step is to get the actual construction costs to make sure we're in the ballpark. And if it's way out of that, I know there's some ability to go back to FEMA. I don't know how much, but we're hoping we've estimated high, and the quotes we get will be within the number we've talked about, and then it will be covered.
I went up there today and looked at it, Greg. What, are you gonna put a curb in the back of that parking lot?
Well, there is a curb now. It's basically some Jersey, or those parking lot bumpers along the west side, right here. And then
Wide open back there.
and then there's about 20 feet of grass that it runs across. So we're gonna put a catch basin in, and then a berm behind it to try to capture the water. Not necessarily a curb, but kind of a berm. So the majority of the vents will go down the storm sewer instead of over the bank. But the large event will still have the ability to go over the top, down our rip-wrapped bank, instead of where it is now.
Right, to me, you either gotta put a berm or you gotta put a curb in there, one or the other.
Well, we're gonna put a berm behind that catch basin to keep the majority of the vents going down the pipe and not over the hill.
Right, and I mean, everything you talked about is the first thing that popped into my mind. I don't see a big deal with running a 10 or 12-inch PVC to the bottom of that hole, and then putting your catch basin in and rip-rapping that, and hopefully you're done with it. I mean, this was kind of an engineering flaw when that parking lot was designed, that you don't even have to be an engineer to you see that this was going to happen. The one thing is that I disagreed with you a little bit is I think it's only a third of the parking lot goes in that, but it's also a heck of a sized parking lot. That's a lot of dang water going in there.
Yeah, and it's all hard serviced and gets
We
there
got
now.
today with my business and with the construction business is, it's so amazing to me how we used to have to deal with 1 inch or 2 inch of rain, and now we're dealing with 4 and 5 inches at a time. So I'm quite amazed it isn't washed out worse than it is. But I would point out that I did have a concern there, and I know there's an answer, and you don't have to answer me tonight, but I did see a clay tile that's cemented off and capped down there. And hopefully, we know if that's the old sewer outlet to the river down there or what that is. With that, it's a clay tile with just a cement cap on it. You probably already know it, so thank you.
Any other discussion?
I make a motion to move ahead.
I got a motion by Leroy,
Second.
second by John, to move ahead with the, going ahead for quotes for the First English Church bank erosion. Any further discussion? All those in
One,
favor?
one quick question, Robbie. Is there some reason that we don't do this in-house? I mean, we've got all the equipment to do this. Is there some reason that we're not doing it in-house?
I don't think Tom or Public Works has the.
FEMA won't allow it. You can do it on the overtime situation, but they will not pay straight wages for FEMA work. So if there's an event and we go out after the fact, they will pay that wage, but if we were to do it during our work schedule, they will not pay
Okay,
wages to city.
thank you.
Any other discussion? Not all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That moves us on to item 8C, which is the Woodridge Bluff roadway.
Okay, per the council direction last meeting, we solicited 7 quotes to repair the last 400 feet or so of Limestone Road. We got 3 back, as you can see in my memo. They're all very tightly packed together in the cost, and it's about $79,450 is the low bid of Rochester Sand and Gravel. Aslickson's, it's a little over 7.5, and then Bituminous Roadways was about 8. I heard back from 2 of the other contractors, said they didn't have time to do it, and the other 2 I never heard back from. The schedule I gave them was to have it completed by mid-October, with the only caveat that once they start, they had 18 days to get done. Thought I would be, be as attractive as we could. They could fit it into their schedule as best they could, but some of them felt they still didn't have time or didn't want to tackle the project, or maybe it's just the size of it being relatively small for the amount of mobilization and different crews they have to bring in. So the council's does not have to award it tonight if you don't want to, but the 3 bids we got are pretty close, and Rochester Sand and Gravel did Alexander Court this year and is also working on Highway 52. So if you wanted to move ahead, they obviously can complete the work.
So here are my 2 questions. First was, what I recall is the estimate was a 45 to 60 originally, and it was 45 if we don't need more fill material, and the high would be 60 if we did. So all of these presume that we do need more fill material. Has that been established?
We put that in there, we put that in the quantities, so when we get out there, if we have it in the bid versus having to come back after. And we also added the repair of 2 catch basins to this project. Now, granted, it's a small, probably $5,000 worth of work on the total. Now, those are my estimates. Again, I'm just estimate based on previous work, and until we get a hard number from a contractor, that's really what the cost is today to do that work. But you are correct. We did put in the additional material in the quantities, so if we did need it, it was in the work. If we didn't end up using it, again, these projects are bid with different units, and we only pay for the units we use. It's not a lump sum, so we only pay with what we actually use out there, but we did accommodate the additional material if needed in the quantities.
Okay. It's a tough one because I know we had tied, well, I'll speak for myself only. There had been the small city, what's the name of the little grant thing that the state gave this year?
It's the state's transportation, small cities assistant account or something like
Right.
that.
And that was going to be
32,000, a little over 32,000 each year, this year and next, so a total of about 64, 65.
So we're looking at about
I think
50,000.
Greg's estimate was 45 to 65, I believe, is what we talked about earlier.
right.
The other option would be to just hold off until next year, early in the spring, and rebid, or call for proposals again. It's not going anywhere other than down.
That's true. And as long as the potential parcel purchasers know that they will not be assessed, it shouldn't inhibit property sales, which is, of course, was our concern. But
This isn't an issue where somebody's gonna have a flat tire or tear the transmission out or something.
no.
And I don't know why it would get better next year, but to me, I just like to put it on hold. I think there's a lot of big issues to think about, and I'd rather think about it next June.
Anybody else?
Do we have any reason to think that our bids would be lower?
Well, we are here the 1st of August, so now half their construction season's over. If we were to requote this in, let's say, February or March, and give them the balance of the summer to
They're
do
a
the
little
work,
hungrier then?
You get a
You
much better
typically
rate.
see better bids in the winter when they're trying to fill up their scorecard, if you will, and we've had a fairly wet summer. A lot of these paving and concrete guys are behind.
That's
And
true.
some of them might not be
Very
wanting to
true.
take another project on that they don't know they can get in time. So I think it's a reasonable expectation to see a reduction in quotes next year if we bid it in the winter or spring and did it. Or if the council decides to move ahead with some semblance of a street job, you could add it as an alternate. Now you've got a larger project bringing a guy into town, you could maybe minimize some mobilization costs. That's probably the biggest thing we're fighting here, because none of this work is a full day. It doesn't take a full day for him to tear the road out. It isn't gonna take him a full day to put the curb back. It's not gonna take him a full day to pave it, so now he's gotta factor in all that mobilization for a half day's worth of work, whereas if it was included as an alternate to a street job, he's in town, his crews are here, they run up there for the afternoon and finish it. So that's another option to think about, and you don't have to make that decision tonight. Either one is a possibility in the spring.
I think we're better off waiting till February and rebidding it, or including it in any other job that we were looking at doing.
Is that a motion?
What?
Is that a motion?
That is a motion.
I second it.
Motion by Ked, second by Leroy. Any further discussion on this?
Just a question, not that I'm even 100% convinced this would be the right thing to do, but that grant, the first year of that two-part grant will come in. I don't imagine that it can be effectively earmarked for this project, or that we would necessarily even want to do that, but we have to accept the idea that source of funding may not be as conveniently available for this project next year. We may have a better thing to use that for
Yeah.
between now and then.
When does that come in, Ron? Is that in June?
I think it came in, I don't know if it's come in, but I thought it was gonna be July, so it should be here if it's not already.
And that's 32,000 or 34,000 for this year, and
5 or something like that,
then we get the same again next year.
yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So it sounds like we would not be able to count on that being.
And do
something
we have
tied
to use it by the end of the by the end of the state's fiscal year?
No, even the first time, the first go-round, when we got that 51,000, they didn't, their guidelines were really loose, and it's just that you need to use it for a street project. There weren't any end dates, and I haven't seen anything like that on this.
Let's just
Okay.
double check on that, just to be sure,
Yep.
so that we know, and we don't get caught and have to give it back or something.
Out of my cold, dead hand. Just kidding.
All right. All those in favor of holding off and not awarding this until the spring?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Brings us on to item 8D, which is the Mill Street parking discussion. I know Public Works Committee spoke on this tonight. I asked to bring this up because there seems to be a lot of people out there that have concerns with the way the parking is on Mill Street. It's been that way for quite a while. There's other places in town besides just Mill Street that also have some tight spaces going through there. So I thought it to be good that we brought up the Mill Street stuff tonight, and it might be good to hear what Public Works decided or talked about there, and then we kind of go from there on this issue.
Okay, I mean, Tom, you want to work together to fill them in on what we've
Sure.
discussed so far?
Well, in going back approximately 4 years ago, because of demand of more parking space, that's why the diagonal went to. We gained 5 spots at that time of parking. And we have 18 stalls on the north side, and we have 10 stalls available on the south side of Mill Street. So that's what initiated it from the start. We've kicked around ideas such as a one-way parking on the bridge, which isn't feasible because of the height of the curb. I even have where we could add approximately 5 or 6 stalls back in front of the Lee Chevrolet. But that doesn't, of course, we don't know what the long-term plan of the winery is as far as the building itself. So that's not even really something we want to tackle at this point. But the short term of it,
Sorry.
and John could comment on this a little bit as he talked to some of the business owners, losing 5 stalls, I'm guessing is huge to a business person down there as far as the turnover rate, the amount of money spent by each vehicle coming in there. So there's more to this picture, which initiated this back 4 years ago. Why did we do this? Because we need more parking, and as we can all agree, with the ice cream shop and the brewery coming in, it's even gonna get hectic or busier down there yet where we need more parking. So that's, I think it was a recommendation of the Public Works Commission that we just keep everything diagonal. It's been brought up 2 or 3 times other Public Works Commissions through the years, and they've kind of agreed because of the lack of parking and the loss of the parking stalls. And that's where John, maybe you could.
Well, I did talk to the business owners to the west side of 4th Street, and none of them want to lose parking spots downtown. They'd rather keep the diagonal. But like I say, it kind of all hinges on what the plans are for the winery before I think we do anything. I suggested one way, coming from the west one way and coming from the east side one way that way. Might alleviate some problems, but that's just a suggestion.
Just to provide a little extra context for folks that may, like me, be newer to this. What we're talking about is, okay, so right now there's diagonal on the north and south side. At one time, there was diagonal on the north side and parallel on the south side. They changed the south side to diagonal. That was the change from 4 years ago. It wasn't that it was all parallel and we went to all diagonal. It was making a double diagonal. So now the discussion would be, if we're talking about making something parallel again, it's just the south side. It's not the both sides. One of the things we talked about at Public Works with respect to the one-way idea, which is very effective in other towns for narrow roadways, have a one-way, diagonal parking both direction on both sides, but there's not a back way. There's not a parallel street with Mill Street that could effectively accomplish what they have in those other towns, which is that the block over is one way the other direction, so that people don't have to drive a long way out of their way. If you went the wrong way on that, you'd have to drive around a good bit to get back around, and we don't think that the business owners either would necessarily like not being able to have both directions available to you on Mill Street. One of the things that we talked about at council, again, this is just filling in some of the context, because again, this has been a conversation that's been occurring for some time, is we talked here about a possible restriction, prohibition, or strong suggestion against oversized vehicles parked in that way. The talk at Public Works tonight was that people might not know how long their vehicle is. So you wouldn't want to make it an ordinance with teeth, for example, where someone's going to be ticketed or towed based on a particular vehicle length. And I can see that, and I understand that, but I remain convinced that if we had some appropriately styled signage in the right location that said, please no oversized vehicles, or something, that, again, it's more of a strong suggestion. People know that they have an oversized vehicle, and there are parking garages all over the Twin Cities and this country that restrict oversized vehicles in certain places. And people, if they choose to, can abide by that. And the fact, okay, here's the other context. We had Jeff McCormick search back into incidents and accidents figures at Mill Street over the course, I think it was 7 or 8 years. Wasn't it?
7 or 8 years, yep.
7 or 8 years. And there's no uptick in accidents and incidents on Mill Street once we went to double directional or double diagonal parking. So although it's universally agreed that it feels tight, quote unquote, it is not resulting in action. People are just careful, it sounds like, and they manage. And I have to think, because we've talked about this about Hoffman, and I remember the same sort of it feels very tight objection when there was talk about putting in the drive-through at Family Fair, right? We have the good fortune to have people here that are doing things and are out and about, and they are engaging in commerce, and they are visiting our city, and the parking for the canoe and boat rental, right? We are a small town, and we are attracting people, and this is a beautiful problem to have. I guess that's my thought. I don't know where I'm going with that.
Well, I think emergency vehicles like the fire department, I think there's plenty of room to get through there even if it's full. I just was making reference to like Hayward and Spooner up in northern Wisconsin. They've got diagonally parking, and their roads are a lot smaller than our Mill Street, and they've got it up there. There's an example.
A couple of things I'd like the council to think about is it's always tough to decide between safety and money where the balance is. I understand that. but safety should be the number one issue. I also know that if somebody hears about our winery and comes to town with a full-size 1-ton pickup, and they gotta find a place down in the parking lot, that probably isn't a big deal, but if they pull in and the sign is in front of them and then now they gotta back out again, and that could be an issue. But I also think that the winery down there, we need to look at more the overall picture. And to me, the overall picture is, I don't know why they don't buy the old Lee Chevrolet building from us. And I don't know why we don't lose a couple stalls and go to more angle on our parking, so we do get another 2 feet through there. There's probably another state regulation that says you can't do that, but I think if we could put more angle on there and lose 2 stalls, that would answer a lot of questions. I don't like the one-way thing at all, because that is the main road that goes out to the fairgrounds, that goes up to Hoffman Street. I think that would be a terrible mistake. But I do think the winery has to work with us more, and to me, that is buying that building, making the whole thing parking down there. I don't know why the city shouldn't take safety first instead of whether the winery is going to get 2 more cars or whatever. And I could get into the comments and stuff on the winery a lot more, but I'm not going to do that, because to me, that's a business that makes money and is out to make money. They should be able to pay for their buildings and their parking. And the parking thing is an issue. It's a safety issue. I don't know what the answer is. I just wanted to give you my thoughts on it. Thank you.
So the business people and the people that I've spoke to downtown like the angle parking, and they would, everyone to a T says, get rid of the oversized vehicles, which is what Public Works talked about. Now, I don't know how long it would take to get people accustomed to not parking their, 6-ton dually pickup down there, but I think from the people that I've talked to downtown, the many phone calls that I've received, just try to get rid of the oversized vehicles, especially on that south side.
And is there any kind of legal thing if you put more angle on that parking down there? If you took and moved all them another 15 degrees, that would make at least 2 feet through there, which is a lot.
Our code for angle parking does say 45 to 60 degrees, so that's what we could do.
Are they 45s or what are they?
45. Yep.
So you could angle them more.
But that would be wouldn't that be the wrong direction?
45 would be the least angle.
Right.
60 would be closer to 90.
And then you lose your 2.
Then
You're right.
you go in the wrong direction.
Between the 2,
Right.
but you're at the best situation now, let's say.
Okay, so you're saying there's no option to put any more angle?
Right. That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
Well, I know we'd lose. I don't care if we lose 2 of them.
We lose space, though. We brought it from 45 degrees to 60. It's going to make it even tighter in there.
It would make the car stick out into the traffic.
Right.
So you want smaller than a 45
We're at the
degree
best
angle.
angle we can be based on what you want. No, right.
The 45 is the minimum.
Angles.
Wow, there you go again. Okay, I'm done.
Is that something is that a state law, or is
No,
that?
it's what's in our code. That could be changed if we came up with a functional plan.
That's the city code?
Yep, under our angle parking code. That would also include, if we wanted to restrict length, we don't have anything in our code at this time. We'd have to make a code for.
Well, again, we wouldn't have to restrict. We could just encourage. We could just encourage. We're talking about a total of 28 spots. You know what I mean? We're not talking about all over town. We're not talking about you can't have your dually pickup truck in the city limits. You know what I mean? We're going to haul you out of town.
Well, I'm just talking the south side.
I understand
I'm
that.
not talking the north side. Yeah.
But, okay, the objection has always been if there are 2 oversized vehicles and they are near one another, that passageway between the ends of those 2 oversized vehicles as they're parked on the north and the south is far too narrow. And I think that we all kind of agree that would be a problem for an emergency vehicle. That vehicle could never pass another vehicle. So if you were going to say no oversized vehicles, you would do it on both sides of Mill Street. You wouldn't just do it on one.
But then my question for you with Public Works is, how do you do that with signage? Do you do it at the stop signs? Do you do it as the entrance on?
Probably on the lamp posts.
So you're gonna have them pull in and then realize we got.
They gotta back out anyways when they leave.
Look a little bit before they fully pull in, so that unless they're not paying attention to what they're doing.
I know some parking garages up in the cities that I wanted to pull into a spot, and I go, compact, you can't pull your truck in there, so you gotta go around.
Signage is right there.
Well, I mean, it's in the area, so.
It's in the area. So.
I mean, to me, we should have signage right at the stop signs, oversized vehicles, parking lot only, or no oversized vehicles on Mill Street.
It's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
I don't think you
I mean,
could overstate
it's something that we
it.
can look at doing, and,
Right.
that's why we wanted to bring this up, so we can talk about it and try to figure out an option, for that. I mean, whether it's signage, I mean, I know you talked with the city attorney, Ron, on that, and that was his big thing, was people not knowing the size of their vehicle, what's considered a compact. That's the other issue. So how do you enforce what you consider a compact compared to what, John considers a compact, what Leroy considers a compact? I mean, those are the other things that we have to look at, too. So, I mean, enforcement would be the other issue. I mean, if you've got it up there and nothing's enforced, then why spend the money to put it up there?
Well, because a lot of people are, I like to believe in the common courtesy
I
of
do
our
too,
fellow
but
man.
I do
okay?
too.
So I think that many people would abide by that sort of spirit. And the folks that don't, maybe we could have a little friendly ticket reminder, not a ticket, but just for future visits to Cannon Falls, please park your oversized vehicle in another location. I mean, this can be done. These are not insurmountable obstacles, guys.
If we're just going off their goodwill, maybe even a back line. It might catch their eye. If they get out and see that I'm hanging 8 feet over this white line,
Yeah. There you go.
they're going to say, huh.
Paint the
Can you-
backside.
Like, can you fit in this spot like a carry-on bag?
I think that,
Good idea.
talk
Yeah.
to us
It's a very
more
good
about
idea.
the angle, talk to us more about the back line, talk to us more about signage, and let's get this thing done. I think it needs to be dealt with. It shouldn't be put off anymore.
Yep, I think we let's keep working on it, and
One other thing that did come up, just because we need to go back to revisit this part, I think. You mentioned it, and I know the winery discussion, because it is related, of course. So my understanding is that the folks at the winery have promised, or that there is a very reasonable expectation that their plan is soon to be revealed. And that plan,
Plan what?
their plan for the Chevrolet building or whatever, is soon to be brought to the planning commission. I don't know.
Yes,
It's going to be
yeah.
finalized in some way soon. So there will be direction based on that about what we can do for the stretch of roadway that's in front of Lee Chevrolet. And based on the measurements, depending on whether there needs to be an outlet or not an outlet, there's another 5 or 6 spots available there in a parallel fashion, not angled because it's on that turn. So, I mean, there's potential for gains of parking down there. And my understanding is that the winery's plan is going to work with that. It's going to be, well, yeah, we will inform ourselves with that.
Well, I think, Cedar, that when you guys discuss that, to me, that road should not be closed down there. I mean, I got a lot of calls, people didn't want that road closed. And I totally understand, but if the winery wants that road closed, and they are in a commercial business to make money, then buy the road, the Lee Chevrolet building, and we'll close it up, do whatever you want. But it's our city road through there. I don't think it's right to take a semi and completely block that road off. I don't think that's fair, especially to the elderly that pull in there and maybe got some driving issues and get a little tense because now what do I do? There is issues with closing that down, and I don't think it's good. And they talked about putting their patio out there and doing all this, and all I see them do is take more sidewalk out front, and you can't hardly get through there if you're walking on the sidewalk. So to me, the winery needs to be a better partner with us and discuss this a lot.
And, and to Babe's question tonight, The city does own that one piece, if you look at the GIS, but it's not listed as a road on the GIS. Your roads are marked in other ways, but the city does own that one piece, and it goes from the city parking lot to the piece that the EDA owns and the part that the winery owns. That's just a piece of property based off the GIS and what's out there that the city owns. And whether it's called a road, or whether it's called the parking lot, or the drive-through for the parking lot, that's what it is at this point. And until we can go back and figure all this out, that's where we're going to let it stand at this time. But we did want to address it.
I understand that, Rob, and Mr. Mayor. My only issue is the law clearly states that if it is used as a roadway for a period of 7 years, it is a roadway by prescription. And that's what that is a roadway. And I'm just telling you, I know what it is.
Is anybody familiar what Ron Stoll wants to do with the winery?
That's right.
Does he plan on moving to the west, or his plans
That's
include closing the road?
to be
Well,
revealed.
we're waiting on the,
We're all
we're waiting on his plans. I mean, and they should be, last I heard, they're coming out pretty soon.
I think the ideal situation would have been if they'd have bought the old Germstead Hardware and paid Altos to close the alley down and made that all one building through there. But we'll see what happens.
Yep.
I had one more question, maybe of Joe. I don't know if throttling down traffic from the west as far as speed would help.
Yep.
It's probably not going to do anything for as far as the east, but if you could bring that down, I know statute is 25 miles an hour, but if that was 20 miles an hour, you might have them not coming off the bridge as fast, so it doesn't seem so hectic there.
Well, the statute's 30 unless the council would come up with a reason why it would need to be less. But I think Cedar hit the nail on the head when she said it's less space, therefore people are way more cautious, and we haven't had incidents. The more incidents that I see, there are people walking out, not using a crosswalk, and not seeing cars coming. But definitely it's a pretty clear line of sight, even when you're coming over to the bridge, to see, hey, it's narrow, they're slowing down. We haven't had any complaints of people speeding through there. Now, yep, 30 miles an hour across the bridge looks like a good clip when you come into that narrow area, but
I mean,
people
is there a way
slowing
we
down
could,
enough because they're aware that it's a narrow and someone could come around 4th Street at any minute. So.
but we could look at maybe slowing it down to 20 miles an hour right through there.
Well, what I would prefer first is that maybe we do some traffic surveys there to see if that's something we really should do. I don't know that we've ever issued a ticket for anybody going over 30 there anyway.
Right.
Kind of the courteous of, hey, don't park your big trucks here.
Yeah.
Some caution signs, narrow road.
I mean, I drove through it tonight. I mean, just to, keep my mind fresh on how tight it is, and I was able to, in my truck, I mean, I got an extended cab, and, I was able to pass other cars. There wasn't a truck that came next to me, but, I mean, it was tight, but you just got to slow down, and nobody wants to ding their own vehicle or anybody else's. So, I mean, my other question, not just that one, but Hoffman Street. I mean, when you have two cars parked on the side of the road on Hoffman Street, there is no way for two cars to go by. I mean, and that'd be something else to look at, is possibly going to, every other block, parking on one side of the street or another to try so that you could get two cars by there. I mean, it might be something else to look at. 'Cause especially, when I've been there like on a Saturday and you're coming down Hoffman and there's cars parked right there and getting right close to that stop sign, it's really tight there. I mean, I don't think we've had many accidents there either, but could be an accident waiting to happen. I mean, it's something to think about.
Leroy brought up a safety aspect. Does anybody ever talk to Tim or Todd to find out the opinions of the ambulance service and the fire department as to what they think?
Yeah.
I mean, if safety is a concern, they should certainly be brought in on the conversation.
Yeah. I mean, to me, something to think about on that street too, so, as we're moving forward.
Sounds good.
I would ask, I am not, but I would inquire, just as a matter of black letter law, I'm sure the city attorney can advise whether or not the prescriptive easement rule in Minnesota applies to this. I don't believe that it does. I believe that the use needs to be non-permissive and adverse, and in this case it has not been. Therefore, the prescriptive easement law would not apply. But we may want to just wrap that up.
Okay. Anything else on this discussion? If not, we're going to move on to item 8E, which is Leroy brought down for the just and correct claims.
Yeah, this is for you, Ron. Too bad for you, but I had an extra hour tonight, so I went over everything in the budget. And I think I got about 25 check marks on there and questions. So what I will be doing is bringing this down, and you take a look at it and get back to me on your response. Some of the things that I checked off were there's a billing for like 825 that's in the top part of the page. And then as I read through the next page, it's billed out in there again. There also was a mini split air conditioner in building 10. Where is building 10? Okay, so there's a mini split air conditioner. I was wondering if that's replacement or how come we didn't.
That's a replacement of a humidifier. We found the mini splits worked out better in the wells as far as keeping condensation down than the humidifiers.
Okay, and
So
this was a replacement unit?
We got some mini splits from the hospital, and that was part of the install.
Okay, okay. And then there's other things on there. There's 2 different places where the billing seems to be the same. And I got the check marks on there, and I'll send that down and just get back to me sometime or send me an email that says what it's about. Thank you.
Okay.
I make a motion to go ahead with that.
Motion by Leroy,
Second.
second by Morris. Any further discussion on the just and correct claims? Not all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Reports. Tom?
Just remind people, we're working our way across town as far as pothole fill. We've used about 40 ton of asphalt so far. Once we get through the town, whatever's left over, we will do a couple alleys as we have in the past. We go by washouts. As you see, every time we get a good rain, some of these alleys we have to chase down the street and start dragging things back. And so that's kind of our priority, is the ones that wash out and get rutted first. So we're slowly working across town on that too.
Hey, Tom, a quick question for you. Would you consider sometime looking at Ohio Street over here? That's a street that's been patched up for 50 years. It's always in tough shape. And if we're going to spend a little extra money on alleys, could we think about just going with a 1-inch or 2-inch overlay over Ohio? And then the other thing is, would you contact the state and ask them if they can do a better job of taking care of the railroad place over there? Their rocks and stuff are getting out on the state highway there. I don't know why that is blacktop back at least 20 feet there. So check into them 2 things for me, will you? Thank you.
Anything else, Tom?
Well, thank you. Something we had come in late this afternoon. If you recall, for 7 years, the Dubar Rack Race was done in town, and that was they congregate at the Mill Street Tavern, do a 5K race, and they end there. They just got all their plans together. If it would so please the council, they're looking for approval to close the 400 block of Mill Street on Saturday, September 9th from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. for what they are now calling their 5K, the Hearts for Guatemala, which is a mission for medical purposes to Guatemala that they'll be doing in February. So we definitely can bring that back to the next council meeting, but they would just like to see if that's something we could get approved tonight so they can move forward with their advertising of their event.
That's the weekend after Labor Day, right?
That would be correct.
Have we had any complaints before when it's been closed down for the Dubar thing?
Nope, and they take care of everything themselves. They don't request any additional help from Public Works. They'll get barricades and stuff from Public Works the night before. They put them at Mill Street that night. They set it all up themselves that day. They don't need our assistance for stopping any traffic. We just make sure that they have it barricaded off sufficiently for their safety, and then they will clean up their event afterwards. And of course, we'll make sure at 11 o'clock they're all opened up and back to normal business.
They should all be so easy.
That,
I'll make
Mill
Oh.
Street from like up the hill towards Casey, straight back, or?
Nope, in front of the Mill Street Tavern, that 400
Oh,
block.
okay, okay.
Okay, is that gonna go,
Yeah,
yeah,
for that morning, we don't have to worry about parking.
yeah, it won't be any.
Park a lot of vehicles in there.
Are there any other events scheduled in the area that day, with any of the businesses that it could affect?
I didn't see any.
I think they've coordinated with the businesses on Mill Street.
Yep, they did
Yeah.
talk to the businesses there and make sure that they, like the winery wasn't having any events in that morning. They usually have afternoon things, so as far as what we were told by the organizers is it was all good with everybody within that block.
Okay, so can we move that back to council business then and put it as item 8F, or? It'll be item 8F, which will be the Dunbar 5K.
It used to be the.
It'd be
Dubai-
called the Hearts
Dubai.
for Guatemala 5K. It's the same
Okay, Hearts-
organizers though.
Okay.
We also encourage them, if they're gonna do it next year, that we can get it approved with all of our other closures that we do early in the year, so.
Was that September or the,
September
9th.
the 9th, from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m.
okay. So Chair will take a motion then under item 8F. I think Mike made the motion.
So moved.
Second?
Motion by Mike, second by Cedar. Any further discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Tonight, we have National Night Out. We have 10 parties that the officers are attending. I was able to attend 2 of those this afternoon and get filled up on some delicious food from the citizens, so I thank them for participating in our National Night Out. This last weekend, we got to celebrate the fire department's 125th anniversary. As you'll hear, I have a cold. I think that's because I was in the dunk tank after the mayor. Not sure what I caught there, but congratulations. Sounds like it's supposed to go to the mayor for raising the most money out of the dunk tank.
Oh.
So apparently people appreciated dunking, you know.
It felt good.
Is that like a reverse
After a while, I found
polarity?
it was warmer at the bottom of the tank than the top when they dumped all the ice in, so. Thursday, we have coffee, cops, and conversation at 10:30 in the morning at the bakery. If anybody can show up and come and ask us questions. Thursday, we also have the First Thursday event. This year, what we're really promoting is our the Code Red for households that don't have a home phone. How do you get an emergency notification in your neighborhood? We need people's cell phone information so we can get those important things out. Friday afternoon, you'll find the Cannon Cruisers event is happening. They'll be gathering at the Cannon Falls High School. At 7 p.m., we'll begin the cruise, which will go from the high school down to 4th and Main to the stoplight. It's going to go south out County 24. They will take a cruise around County 9, coming back in on County 25 to the city parking lot. So Friday night, there will be some restrictions along Main Street and the city parking lot. And then Saturday, we have the Lions Main concert. People got to enjoy some music in town last weekend with the Fireman's Dance. There's going to be more music this Saturday night from the fairgrounds. That is expecting to end at 11 o'clock, however, so people can get a good night's sleep. That's all I have.
Thanks.
I'll thank all the officers for the special night, that they get their recognition and how much they're appreciated.
I will do that, thank you.
Ron?
Actually, just a couple things. I've been looking at websites, looking at redoing ours. Ours is an administrative nightmare for staff to work with. So we're looking at least the dollars and cents to put in next year's budget. We're going to keep it pretty minimal. Another thing I did hear from the state on those 2 parcels, they're still working on the conveyance. Those are the 2 parcels just north of the VFW American Legion, and they're still working on the conveyance of those 2 deeds to us. So we're getting closer anyway on that. That's all I have.
Linnell?
Excuse me. I just wanted to update the council a little bit on the Minlars project that the state is working on with the DMV. It is not going well. You've maybe heard this in the media accounts, and that includes our office as well. Longer lines, things are not being able to be processed, so we just appreciate the cooperation and patience of the customers that come in, and I just wanted to inform you. So if you have any questions, please let us know.
I just want to echo Joe's statements about the National Night Out. I was at a party across the street from my house, and there was a whole table full of kids, and when that ambulance and police car and fire truck showed up, their eyes and it was really, really cool to see how excited they were. And the staff, the cops and the firefighters and the ambulance people that were there they bent over backwards to make sure. They were spraying water, and they were laying on the cot, and the police officers had balloons and all stuff. It was just really cool. So kudos out to all those groups that volunteered tonight.
We were pleased to welcome Marcy French on behalf of the Cannon Arts Board to the Public Works Commission tonight. In particular, we're discussing the feasibility of having some very attractive downtown banners, like light post banners, like they have in many other small towns. That's a work in progress, but it was a pleasure to hear about some of the interesting celebrations of the fine arts that we have in Cannon Falls. So I encourage folks to check out the Cannon Arts Board website for more information. Thanks.
Hey, Cedar, when you work on them banners, get a nice one made up to put on the sewer bridge down on the river there. Welcome canoers to Cannon. Because it's a great spot to have a banner, and this canoe business is crazy down there.
That's a great idea.
That is a great idea.
Yep. John?
Nothing from the planning commission. Just want to add to that roadway by the winery. I don't know if we mentioned, but that public roadway will be open now until further discussion on their winery plans. But he's done bottling, so they're not going to be blocking the road anymore. Just to make that clear.
And you know, we did talk to him. I talked with Jeff after the last meeting that if they still need to do a bottle next time, that they let us know earlier, and we make other arrangements and work it into a little bit better way for everybody. So, you know, there might be a time where we may have to close it for an hour, but it wouldn't be closed all day. But there's things that we'll work out there. I mean, I know we close off streets for the bike race, and you know, downtown was blocked off for motorcycles this week. So, I mean, there's things out there that happen, and but you know, it's all growing pains, and we'll go from there. Leroy?
Yeah, and to make a little quick comment on that, I think it'd be nice if the street gets left open, but there can be orange cones set there with flashers because they got a forklift going back and forth or something. So maybe we can do something to keep it open and tell them to just use half of it and then do the flasher thing, make them put it out, manage it. So I think it's good to discuss about it. But anyway, geez, I don't want to shock everybody, but I don't have anything tonight.
You had a great idea about the banner, Leroy. We can't expect any more.
Hurry up, Ken. You got anything? No.
The Art Council does have a bunch of stuff planned for this coming first Thursday. So kids ought to come out and check them out.
Just want to say kudos to the the fire department for the great job that they did for their 125th anniversary. It was fun in the dunk tank. I was hoping there would be some other people coming out to throw things at me, but it was fun aggravating the kids a little bit. And I know that my wife just made a big donation, and she didn't throw any balls. She just went up and hit the red button and knocked me in the water. So she says she's not wasting any time.
I think that's illegal.
Well,
You better have Cedar check it.
yeah, better check on that now. But kudos to our fire department for their 125 years of service. And on National Night Out, it's good to see that we do it. A lot of communities don't do it, so it's good to see that it continues in Cannon Falls like it has for many years to come. Other than that, I have nothing else this evening, so Chair will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.